Hello and welcome to the finals here from Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen, and we are underway. Hall of Famer, Grand Prix champion this season, William Huey Jensen, playing blue-white control, playing against Marlon Gutierrez with Orzhov control. This is a little bit different of a take on a deck. It's black-white, full-on control deck. Well, pretty close to full-on control deck, not as controlling as William's deck is. But it is not a devotion-based strategy, which is what we've been seeing the most of out of the black-based decks. This one is control. And typical of control matchups, nothing for the first few turns here.
Oh, yeah. Especially on Huey's end, he is so reactive that we're not going to see him play stuff unless we see Marlon play stuff.
Okay. Marlon is going to be playing second here. Huey Jensen was higher ranked. He was the 4th seed coming in, which is going to put him on the play. Or the 5th seed, excuse me. They were 5-6, right? And an Azorius charm gets cycled for Huey. Nothing more. So, Jake, one of the questions that I did want to ask you is that Huey's deck is all answers, right? I mean, he can answer anything that Marlon's going to do here. He needs to be careful about which answers he uses in which spots. It's not super easy. Here's a Thoughtseize now for Marlon. What are the chances of Huey trying to deck Marlon here? Because remember, Huey's got an Elixir of Immortality that he can use so that he won't get decked, assuming it doesn't get Thoughtseized away or whatever.
I mean,
is that a plan for Huey, or is it still just does it eventually resolve Elspeth and kill you?
Well, it's a backdoor plan because he obviously has the option of attempting to deck his opponent, but you know he's going to attempt to win with Elspeth, and his Elspeth can be dealt with via Hero's Downfall. Even so, if it does get dealt with, he can shuffle it back into his library with Elixir of Immortality.
Okay. So it might just end up being Elspeth anyway?
It might end up being Elspeth anyway, but if it goes down the line, there's definitely a chance that he's going to deck Marlon in one of these games.
Okay.
And I think that's in the games where Huey wins in this matchup, that's probably going to happen in at least a quarter of the games.
Okay. Well, where we're at in Dallas, it's very cold outside, and I hope where you're at it's a little bit warmer, but either way, grab a bowl of popcorn.
Yeah, settle in.
Get a glass of water. Get the cat and sit down because this is going to take a while either way. So Huey's got the an Azorius charm in his hand that he can use on this demon. You can also just draw a card if he wants, but yep, there it is.
He's going to be happy to put that demon back on the top of his opponent's library. His opponent doesn't hit his 5th land, which is pretty
unfortunately,
big here.
Huey hasn't yet either, so he's going to have to rely on this divination to do it. And he does, but
well, for
barely.
him, it's the 6th land.
Oh,
right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Sure.
So the demon's going to take up a whole extra turn for his opponent.
Marlon Gutierrez in his 2nd Grand Prix ever, playing a black-white control list. He's one of either 1 or 2 people left here that played that deck. It was not a popular choice for the weekend. A lot of mono black, a lot of mono blue, and only 1 mono black made it to the top 8.
It's pretty
Zero
impressive.
mono blue.
Great show here by Marlon this weekend. We've
Absolutely.
watched him play. We've watched him play a couple matches now, and the deck seems really cool. He's been playing reasonably well every time we watched him.
All right, so a 2nd Desecration Demon here for Marlon. And that's going to draw, well, a Jace Architect of Thought first, which is going to take a look at some cards here. And he's going to see, well, there's a nice Azorius charm there. Also, though, I don't think Huey's played his land for the turn, and he's got a Detention Sphere that he can use as well. Huey's going to take the Azorius charm. I'm going to make sure he orders those the way he wants. There's a reasonable chance he gets to that point in the library. And there's Detention Sphere. And I got to say right away, Huey looks to be in a great position early here.
He does.
I mean, there's no board, no pressure, and his deck is all answers. He's way ahead on lands as well. So he's got to feel happy. Now, unfortunately, though, it looks like a Blood Baron could hit the table here. And
I mean, in game 1, Marlon has a lot of dead cards. So I think game 1 probably favors Huey. But games 2 and 3 are definitely a completely different ballgame.
Okay, the 10 hand disruption effects.
He gets to take all of those.
Now, everything.
Yeah, he gets to take all those removal spells out of his deck and just replace them with, very relevant cards.
Yeah, now Blood Baron's an interesting one, though, because even, I was saying earlier that Huey has access to ways to deal with everything that Marlon can do, but he does need to be careful. Well, he's got a Supreme Verdict here that can kill this Blood Baron, but with another Blood Baron, all of a sudden Detention Sphere doesn't work anymore. Ooh, but he's going to see 2 dissolves here, and this is a great flip for him because he's going to be able to play his he's
either going to get Divination and Dissolve, or he's just going to get 2 Dissolves, which basically just wins the game on the spot.
Right, and so Huey's actually going to be able to prevent the second Blood Baron from coming down here with a Dissolve, and also Wrath this turn. So big flip there, because they're all right. You can't pick those up quickly enough. I mean, if he played Divination, he'd want to draw 2 Dissolves anyway. So
yeah, that would be ideal.
That'll work fine. And here's this, and now Huey Jensen has really put the grips down. Now, Marlon can come out of this pretty nicely, though. I mean, like, if he plays a Duress here or something, remember, he's got 4 Thought Season,
another
2
Dissolve.
Duress. I mean, but he can land another Blood Baron, and that would be an issue. Huey lets him have the... oh, no, he does not let him have it. He said, what were you targeting? And Huey wants to get every little bit of information and then counters. Now he's going to take a look at the top card with his scry and try to decide if he wants to keep it or ship it. So what I was saying is Blood Baron is awkward for Huey to get rid of, right? Like, Detention Sphere doesn't work. He can't keep it off his back with a Azorius Charm. He really does need to Wrath it away.
Yeah, or counter it.
Or counter it. And that's definitely plan A, and he sees the best card in his deck. One of the main reasons this deck exists at all, Sphinx's Revelation.
It's just such a powerful effect when you get to... draw a ton of cards and put yourself out of range from your opponent killing you. It's just really hard. And
as you can see, there's some matchups where Huey would have fired off that Sphinx's Revelation last turn and just do it for 3 to get things moving. He is just under 0 pressure here and just has no reason to do that. So he waits a turn, hits a land drop, and now he gets to fire it off for 6. Unbelievable card. And this deck absolutely takes full advantage of it. He finds another one in there, counts out his cards real quick, ditches 2, and he says, I'm at 7, your move.
Go ahead.
And this is where Huey exists in the world. He is his opponent on stone nothing, and him having a full grip,
even
a
left
bunch
it on
of
top
counters.
Of the Dissolve. Might have like your graveyard by all means.
A lot of pressure for Huey to pick up this first game.
Yeah, he really needs this first game. The first game shouldn't be that hard for him to pick up, but games 2 and 3 are going to be really rough, and he's going to need some stuff to go right for him if he wants to overcome the amount of disruption that Marlon has access to in the next 2 games.
Okay.
So he really needs this one. For Marlon, if he's able to take this first game away, it's going to be really tough for Huey to have any chance. So Marlon really wants this first game also. It's just a really, really, really important first game either way.
All right, Quicken just to cycle. Detention Sphere is going to take down Underworld Connections. But in response, Marlon's going to draw a card. So at least he got his card back off of it and took one away from Huey. And then Huey just passes a turn back. Has another Detention Sphere in his hand along with a Dissolve. Sphinx's Revelation 2. Thoughtseize is going to get met with Dissolve, so Huey's just going to counter basically all relevant stuff here. He's got to protect it.
Yeah, he can just counter everything forever, essentially. And at this point, even if his opponent does resolve a Blood Baron, it's almost like he could let it hit him indefinitely. He can just chain Revelations. And there it is, another detention sphere. Dealing with yet another underworld connections. Yep, that's a big one. So Sphinx Revelation for 10 here, guys. That's he is now drawing 10 cards and getting 10 life. Going to pop himself all the way up to 36.
And this is what Marlon's
Got to make sure you don't draw
can't
11
do.
by accident. And
Yeah, that is one of the only ways he can lose. Elixir of Immortality. I think he played that just to see if Marlon would scoop to it.
yeah,
You know, sometimes you just run it out there and then he's like, all right, you got it, we're done here. But he also just wants to get it out of his hand so it doesn't get Thoughtseize or anything. But yeah,
well, he also just wants to use it this turn. I mean, he has all those Revelations and Dissolves in his graveyard. It's going to make every subsequent draw really, really good.
So is he going to fire it off right now? No, he's going to empty out his hand. Just wondering if he's going to do it before he has to discard a bunch of lands. He's got a Syncopate in his hand, though, so I'm sure he'd like to keep up as much mana as possible here. And Jace down. No big deal. This is an embarrassment of riches at this point for Huey.
Yeah, I mean, look at all this. I mean, he has 14 lands in play.
Yeah. In a control mirror. Not mirror, but control matchup.
He has fired off a Sphinx's Revelation for 6 and a Sphinx's Revelation for 10.
And also, you can see that he's taken, like, no damage. He gains 5 life now as he cracks that Elixir of Immortality after Marlon passes. And now it's just a matter of either decking his opponent or finding Elspeth and going off with that.
The Elixir of Immortality really is it's so old school. The victory
the
condition.
idea, yes,
it's like
it is. I mean, that's
it's
what
really beautiful. It's such an elegant thing.
I mean, that's what I liked about the last Standards control decks is that they could use Nephalia Drownyard and just didn't need to run win conditions. I mean, it was the most beautiful controlled card ever, right? It's just like, it is a land, which is all you want to run anyway.
It's like
and then
Kaldoran
it wins you the
Outpost.
game.
Yeah, you just
I love
make
that.
1/1s on their end step. That's how you win.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. All right, Huey's got another Jace here, probably the one that just got killed and shuffled back into his library. And
Yeah.
he's plussing Jace now.
Yeah, may as well, right?
Yeah, there's a Mutavault or something
he's
over
just
there.
trying to dig for some of his opponent's blood barons.
Yeah,
He's just like, oh, I'll just
Yeah,
take his blood barons.
that might be the quickest way. I mean, not that speed is really of the essence here, but, like, why not? Draw a card. Draw another one. So he's just digging through his deck here, and he is going to find Planeswalker eventually here of the Elspeth variety. Start making soldiers and start beating down. Oh, he has an Elspeth in hand there. And she ready to make an appearance? She is.
Yep.
Now he's got Syncopate back up here. And probably a Dissolve or 10 in there, too. 3 Owen Turnwald tokens. Passes a turn, Marlon kind of pauses. Yes, this is happening. I don't think Huey's missed a land drop for the duration of this game. Like, we could probably just count those lands and know what turn it is.
Yeah.
Looks like 18-ish.
Now, Elspeth is basically the only win condition in Huey's deck He has, of course, Jace as a win condition, Mutavaults, but
And Jace is interesting because you mentioned it, but if he goes and gets a Blood Baron, like
Yeah,
I
he
don't
goes
see
and
how
grabs some
Marlon's
Blood
going to
Barons.
deal with a Blood Baron.
yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, he's black-white.
Hey, he has Devour Flesh, but those Elspeth tokens are pretty good defending against it, I guess.
Also, Huey has Mutavault on table, and he's just started throwing cards around.
But, these are the cards.
So he needs to take the elixir here, right? Can't let that get in the graveyard. Or actually, that would just be on the bottom of his
just goes
deck
to the
anyway.
bottom,
so
which is an ideal place
so
for that elixir of
for our
immortality.
sake, he needs to take the elixir. Oh, takes 2. Sloppy play there
First
from Huey. Down to 39. All right, so this is getting a little silly at this point. As Huey is in
Well, we
such
kind of knew that
firm-
this game 1 is very strongly in his favor because there are so many spot removal spells in Marlon's deck that are just completely dead here.
Oh, okay.
But
Sure.
games 2 and 3 are really hard for him. So
Yeah, it's just funny the way this deck wins. It's like the grindiest possible in this format, probably. And poor Marlon's over there playing lands and not doing anything. Activate Mutavault and his brother. Twin Mutavaults both attack Jace.
he's probably just going to trade one of his Mutavaults and
All right, I think that Huey just put all 3 of them on one. That way he can't get blown out by he makes sure that those removal spells stay irrelevant.
makes sense.
Maybe he's just got 2 of them here though. A Devour Flesh you. Sure, kill one of them, but your Mutavault's still going to die.
He actually gets the Devour Flesh of his opponent's hand, too, in case he does get to go search for that Blood Baron.
Make that 2. And Mutavault is going to bite it here, but that keeps the 2 tokens blocking the Mutavault. I mean, this is kind of a petty fight at this point, right? I mean, it's not these aren't actually killing Jace anyway.
Yeah.
But now Huey has entered the stage where he starts putting cards back on top of your library with Azorius Charm, and you start drawing the same thing 3 turns in a row while he's drawing like 10 cards a turn. Speaking of drawing 10 cards a turn.
That's a lot more than 10, my friend.
There's yeah, you're right. Jeez. He just drew a Sphinx's Revelation also. So now he has 2 of them in his hand.
I mean, he might not even be able to Sphinx Revelation for the full amount because he would deck himself.
Probably not. Now he's got that elixir, so he can pad the stats a little if he needs to. But this game is firmly in hand for Huey, though it will take a little bit more time here to actually find our winner, as Elspeth is sitting in the graveyard, is going to need to be shuffled back in. So either somebody's going to have to get decked, Jace is going to have to go ultimate, or Huey's going to have to eventually redraw Elspeth, play it, get a bunch of tokens going, and then finally kill his opponent. 15 cards he just drew.
Yeah.
Double checking. And that is true, though, what you said earlier, Jake. Why he's being so clear about how many cards is basically the only way he can lose from this point is by making a mistake, like drawing an extra card, which is an automatic game.
And it's worthwhile for Marlon to not concede, because when your opponent is drawing chunks of like 15 cards at a time, it's not completely unreasonable.
No, it's not.
For them to accidentally draw 16.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a game loss.
Right. Like that means that game would just end on the spot. So, yeah. Control fans around the world are like fist pumping at home. Like, this is the best.
This is so cool.
All the mono red players are like, ugh.
I'm furious right now.
One player's
61
at
life.
61,
That disgusts me.
61 life. The other one's
His
at
opponent
16.
at the inverse number.
That's right.
Hall of Famer William Huey Jensen doing pretty well here in this game 1. It's a little bit of an understatement.
It's a lot of permanents. Activate Mutavault and get that last Devour Flesh out of there. Dissolve it. And this is a spot where Huey's just like, sure, like, I have so many cards it doesn't even matter. That resolves. Put that one on the bottom. And he's got a last breath now for Mutavault. That's going to get syncopated for 4 or 5.
Yep.
Exile that one. You know, you mentioned it earlier, though, Jake. These are basically just dead cards for Marlon anyway, so he's just like, well, I'm going to fire him off just to get rid of...
Yeah, I'm just going to spend them.
I mean,
Might
like,
as well.
this is a reasonable spot to do it, and I mean, Jace is being attacked by a 2/2 here, so... And his last card in hand is a Hero's Downfall that's also going to get dissolved. And it's a Divination. Huey doesn't want it. Mutavault is going to be blocking. Remember, this whole fight was... Okay, so it looks like there's maybe a little confusion about which one he was actually attacking here. I mean, obviously he's not attacking Huey, so...
Yeah, well, he attacked with it, and then... what happened there?
I guess Jace had plussed
Jace
the turn
had,
before, so it
plussed
was
the turn
only a
before,
1/1.
So it was a 1. So it was a 1/2, and then it just got eaten by the other Mutavault. Makes sense.
But that was so long ago that Marlon had forgotten that Jace had plussed the turn before. And finally, Huey is declared our winner of Game 1. Now, that was only Game 1. We've got 2 more games, and it is going to be significantly different in the next 2 games as Marlon is going to get to take out a bunch of junk that he just does not want in his deck and put in a bunch of sweet stuff. Let's take a look at our bracket, our road to the finals here for each player. Huey Jensen defeated Darren Menard by really just kind of smashed him. His life total was rarely in danger. Maybe not the best draws from Darren. I'm not sure. I haven't seen his deck enough to really know.
But he missed a couple key land drops in game 2. In the other games, I mean, Huey's deck is just really well set up for that type of thing. I mean, he's really lean. He has a lot of counter magic, and his cards that aren't counter magic are big gain life draw spells.
Right.
So when your opponent's trying to kill you with burn, it's not going to work.
Right. So that put him in the semifinals versus Carlos Becerra Reyes, who was playing mono red Devotion, nearly mono. He had green for Domri Raid, but Huey found himself behind for the first 6, 7, 8 turns of Game 1 and just grounded out and ended up putting himself in a great spot and winning the game, taking the next game and winning the match, putting himself in the finals. On the other side, Marlon Gutierrez, playing his black-white control deck, faced Seth Manfield on blue-white control, was able to get by him, which is maybe a harbinger of what we're going to face here.
Because Seth won Game 1 when Marlon had all these dead cards in his deck. We have to remember, in Game 1, Marlon's deck is full of cards like, he has 4 Devour Flesh, he has Ultimate Price, he has Last Breath. He has all these cards that are just horrid in the matchup. And all those get to come out and become very relevant spells.
That's right. And that put him into the semifinals against Ben Stark. And you got to feel like Marlon's deck is a really nice matchup against Ben's deck. I mean, obviously, I haven't played the matchup, but geez, any deck that has main deck Blood Baron of Vizkopa versus a black-white aggro deck they're going to have a tough time. I mean, not impossible by any stretch, but that card is a powerhouse. And when you've got 4 in the main, your deck's built to play it, and it's going to be pretty tough for Ben Stark to get by him there. Wasn't able to do it, so that put Marlon into the finals. And now he's down a game. Now, this is Marlon's second GP ever, so this is a stellar finish for him, especially considering this is Williams' 5,000th GP ever, right? I mean, he's been playing him since the late 90s, So, I mean, he had a break in between as well, but still, he is no stranger to high-level tournament magic on a big stage here, where Marlon probably is. I mean, this is a new territory for him. To be fair, I mean, he seems perfectly calm. He's been playing fine, so
yeah, he's competent player.
Yeah, no worries from his side. But interesting. We talked about sideboards. Let's take a look here. Sin Collector, Pithy Needle, and an extra Duress for Marlon Gutierrez. I mean, these are all very, very nice cards to have against a deck like William Huey Jensen's. On Jensen's side, he's got a Jace Memory Adept, Is that something we might see here?
Probably, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would bring it in.
Okay. Last Breath, not an issue here. Ratchet Bomb probably can stay. Gainsay, no. Negate, yeah. Negates are just a nice, cheap way to answer the Hand Disruption and Underworld Connections.
Yeah, I mean, the negates, they may cost more than the Thoughtseizes and the Duresses that are in Marlon's deck. But, you know, they cost less than the Underworld Connections he's playing. There are a lot of cards you want to counter out of Marlon's deck, and you do really want to, you know, protect your Dissolves, and you want to protect your Revelations. And Negate's really good at doing that for you, so he's going to definitely bring that in. Pithing Needle can name a land that has Underworld Connections on it. Remember, don't name Underworld Connections.
Right.
Because Underworld Connections doesn't have an activated ability.
Right.
It bestows a land with an activated ability.
Yeah. And that is a weird thing that you have to learn when you're training for standard format. It's just one of those strange interactions.
Yeah. Fiendslayer Paladin is an interesting one. I don't think you bring it in. It just doesn't seem like what you want to be doing here.
I mean, it will live forever. Well, no, I guess he does. Well, you can't figure that Marlon's going to keep those removal spells in his deck, though, right? He can't wait to get those out.
Oh, yeah, there's no way he's still going to have things like Devour Flesh in his deck, which may make Fiendslayer Paladin pretty reasonable, but at the same time, I mean, it just gets trumped by Blood Baron. It's a card that, you know, when Marlon is playing his I'm going to tear your hand apart and hopefully this threat can go unanswered plan, Fiendslayer Paladin is another card in your hand that he does not need to Thoughtseize or Duress or Sin Collector, and you don't want cards like that.
You just want all good stuff.
You want Divinations, you want Revelations, you want Counter Magic, and you want Spheres and Verdicts. That's all that Jensen's deck is.
Yeah, it really is.
I think, like, ideally against Marlon's deck, you want to be like, hyper aggressive with, like, you know, like red cards and Mizzium Mortars. But obviously, Huey doesn't have the option to become that deck.
Yes. That is a gear his deck does not possess. It is fully in the opposite direction. Okay, let's take a look at our opening 7. Huey Jensen, 1 game away from his second GP title in just a few months. Huey was our Grand Prix Oakland winner. That was a limited tournament with M14, and he's going to have to take a mulligan here on the draw. Looks like Marlon's kept. So
mulligans are very bad against Marlon. 10 discard spells. These post-border games.
That's right.
3 Duress, 4 Thoughtseize, 3 Sin Collector.
And Sin Collector is just sweet against Huey, too. You get that nice 2-for-1. You get to take a look at their hand, which is big. You also get to take something relevant, which he will basically always have in his hand. If he doesn't, then you're just very happy anyway. And then you get a 2-1 that hangs around and is just really annoying.
Yeah, it applies pressure to Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
You know, it affects life totals. It forces you to maybe use a Revelation a turn before you would have used it otherwise, things like that.
Right.
And it's just a really good card in matchups like this. Sin Collector is just a powerful card in general. I mean, this card I think will continue to see play for the duration of time that's legal and standard, and it could even see play in other formats as things progress.
Okay, let's see if Huey can keep his 6 here. I mean, one thing his deck can do is recover from a mulligan, but if his hand gets torn apart by Thoughtseize and stuff, that's a mulligan.
Yeah, so
then that's going to make it incredibly difficult. I mean, you know, cards like Divination and stuff are really good at digging you back. He keeps looking at it.
I think he just has to keep it.
Oh, really? Because he's not going to be under that much pressure anyway?
Well, he has 1 land, which is horrid, and he probably needs to top deck a couple lands, but I mean, he's seen his opponent's deck list. He knows that his opponent's just a pile of discard spells. Like, if you mulligan to 5, what's the plan?
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, he has a ton of lands in the deck. All right, yeah. Normally, I see a 1-lander on 6, and I just figure you gotta get it out of there. But that makes really good sense, especially because like the only really scary thing Marlon can do is turn 2 Pack Rat, right? That's the thing where you're like, oh man, you know. And even then, Huey has ways. He has ways to get rid of a Pack Rat. His deck is the best setup for it because Detention Sphere kills all the Pack Rats no matter what. Unless one of them gets killed by his own removal spell. But anyway, it kills all the pack rats, and so does the Supreme Verdict. So, yeah, no, that makes good sense. He's going to take Detention Sphere. Interesting.
Perhaps telling that he has said pack rat
Yeah,
or
maybe Underworld Connections.
Underworld Connections for next turn. That's another possibility.
He does.
Nice.
Wow, Syncopate, though, gets it.
Yeah, a good draw step for Huey there.
No kidding. And now Divination. So that was a huge swing and 2 lands off Divination,
Yeah,
too.
that's exactly what he wanted to find. So
wow.
drawing out of this nicely.
What a
William
great
Huey
situation
Jensen.
for Huey. Has one unknown card in hand and just gets him. Oh, but Marlon's got his own.
Yeah.
All right.
And, I mean, the fact that he's going to get that going so early, that Underworld Connections, that's pretty big.
Speaking of pretty big, Jace, Architect of Thought, is going to keep the card draw flowing here. There's an Elspeth, a Supreme Verdict, and a land.
Oh, man. He's really taking the Elspeth there?
He took the Elspeth, and he took the basic land with it.
I think I would have taken the Verdict and the land.
All right.
But, I mean, Huey's way better than I am, so
Underworld
I learned
Connection-
something.
Underworld Connection draws a card there. And it is going to ostensibly draw him a card every single turn for the rest of this game. And that's pretty much what it's there to do in this list, is just hammer through and keep drawing card after card after card.
And then you can, trade the cards in for cards of your opponents.
Right.
And
There's a Pithy Needle now for Marlon. Going to activate that thing first, though. Draws a Swamp.
if he does decide to go ahead and Pithing Needle, naming Jace Architect of Thought, then Huey can just upgrade into a bigger Jace.
All right, he does, in fact, do that.
Yeah,
and passes
and that's
turn.
actually a little odd because Marlon didn't know that Huey had the big Jace in hand. I mean, he can't just like sit there and let the Jace keep accruing advantage. So I suppose it's fine, but
it is awkward for Marlon, as big Jace here can accrue a ton of advantage as well. He can start drawing cards with it if he wants, or even he can just start milling his opponent. I mean, with no pressure on it, no Mutavaults on the side for Marlon, no creatures at all, he can also just start going to town. All right, so that Jace dies because the legend rule still exists, but and now he's going to draw a card and mill his opponent for one. He finds a Pithy Needle, but he does not cast it. Can't. He's tapped out.
yeah, and I mean he has he now has the option of Pithing Needle naming Swamp, which is pretty good for him.
Yeah, it'll stem the bleeding on that card draw. Marlon has a pack rat in his hand.
He also has a Blood Baron. His opponent is tapped out.
All right, he is going to just play pack rat and Hero's Downfall, take down Jace, and another big swing, this time back in Marlon Gutierrez's direction. Now he's got, at least down the line, a threat going here that must be answered at some point. And he took Huey's Jace off the table. And Pithy Needle naming Swamp.
Yeah.
Okay. Could name Pack Rat if he wanted, but doesn't. Swamp.
Yeah, I mean, the Pack Rat is something that it's kind of like bait for Marlon, if that makes sense. I mean, he has multiple Supreme Verdicts in hand, so he would just be absolutely delighted if Marlon decided to dump any certain number of cards into this Pack Rat.
That's right.
It would be excellent value for him, and I don't think Marlon's going to do it. Marlon's probably just going to, use it as a 1/1 for 2 mana, and
which is obviously a huge bummer for Marlon, but it is where he's at right now. So is this Elspeth? Is it Elspeth the Clock here in Dallas?
I believe it is Elspeth the Clock
It's
here
Elspeth
in Dallas.
the Clock. Plus, make 3 Owen Soldier tokens.
Oh, man, that token just won back-to-back GPs. Gotta watch out for it.
Indeed. Now, Does he have the hero's downfall? He does. All right, well, a couple of valiant efforts from William Jensen to put huge pressure on his opponent, but now it looks like Marlon is going to start. I think he discarded to the pack rat there.
Was he waiting for a rat token?
I mean, they don't exist, so you'll be waiting, but there's a token of some sort. Yeah. So he did. He made a rat. You said Huey would be delighted if he saw this.
I believe he will be.
Yeah. Thought sees you. Supreme Verdict, Jace Architect of Thought dissolve.
And that pithing needle right now, blanking that Architect of Thought.
That's right. So does he just take one of the Supreme Verdicts and try to force Huey to use the other one and then resolve? I think he's got a Blood Baron in his hand down the line or something.
Oh, that's one option. I also kind of just like taking the dissolve.
Okay. Because then you can actually resolve your Blood Baron at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did take the Supreme Verdict here, though, so he's got enough pressure on the board. Triple block. 2/2/2 pack rats, so this is tempting here, and he is going to ditch to pack rat, taking out all 3 tokens, and he just gets to untap a token here. We'll untap that one. There we go. Thank you, Huey. Huey's listening to me. Somebody is. All right, untap everything. Huey Jensen. He's a game away from a Grand Prix title. Here's Supreme Verdict to get rid of all the pack rats. And he still has that pesky dissolve up now. Pack rat, okay. So pack rat's going to get dissolved here, but I do believe that he's got that last card as a Blood Baron of Viscopa.
It is?
I think, right? Yeah, and it's pretty pesky for Huey to deal with. Huey plays Jace, but it's been pithy needled, so he can't actually do anything with it.
Yep.
And then he plays Divination, draws 2, and he's tapped out.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter because he would have drawn the negate, which isn't going to stop this Blood Baron anyway.
I mean, it doesn't matter in retrospect, but that could have been a disaster.
That could have been a disaster,
Yeah.
I mean, people should really be writing down the cards that those pithing needles represent.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that he thought it was naming something else. He just forgot it was there, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, it happened. We did it earlier. Like, that's a common occurrence. Pithy Needle's one of those weird cards, static effect, but now all of a sudden Marlon is going to start beating down with his Blood Baron of Viscopa, and Huey's got to find an answer. That's not going to do it. Detention Sphere is no good. Azorius Charm also no good. Okay, but now he's going to be able to dig. He's going to play Detention Sphere. Put it on the Pithy Needle. And Marlon's thinking. Oh, in response. Ooh, he's going to fire off a Hero's Downfall, but that's going to get negated. So we are going to see a Jace activation, and he's got to find something. Yeah, so Marlon with a little misstep here. He tapped his Underworld Connection Swamp to pay because he had it in his head that he wasn't able to do anything with it, but both Pithy Needles are gone now.
Yeah, because the Detention Sphere.
Yeah, so he actually missed a card draw there, which that can be huge in these type of situations. All right, so Blood Baron is going to hit Huey and drop him down to 8. Mutavault's going to take care of Jace, and Marlon has big pressure here.
Yeah, a little misstep there by Huey. The dissolve on that pack rat earlier in the game is really the turning point here.
Now, does Marlon realize? I mean, he can see clearly that the Pithy Needle's gone, but is that? Yeah, it looks like he's got his hand on that swamp, so I think he's realized his error, and he's going to
do it on Huey's turn. It would have been good for him to do it main phase. You never know if he's gonna hit a demon or
just
a
missing.
discard spell.
He just outright missed a card draw.
He a full turn cycle passed?
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
It was because he used the mana to cast that Hero's Downfall to take down.
Oh yeah, well I saw that. I thought you meant he missed another one.
Oh no.
Okay.
And
because I certainly would have used that main phase. there.
You would have.
Yeah, because like you could just hit a discard spell or something that you want to cast on your turn.
Absolutely.
Another Underworld Connections.
Yep. All right. That's not going to do it, at least not yet. It was an Azorius charm, which he can't use on the Blood Baron. He didn't. Did he not draw a card there? All right. So he has completely forgotten. He does not know that the Pith and Needle's gone. It's clear.
Yeah, he just used that mana to activate the.
He has it in his head, and this is what you have to do though when you play Magic is create shortcuts like this, and he is now relying on the shortcut too much, and he's using it for any colorless or whatever mana, and here's the negate to take out the other one. Wow. So Marlon, though, still in the driver's seat. He's giving Huey some breathing room here by not drawing extra cards. And there it is, Supreme Verdict off the top. Yep. Get rid of that thing. And
both players with no cards. Marlon does have a Mutavault, though.
He does have a Mutavault. Huey's at 7. And again, he's going to use it to activate the thing. So,
whoa, okay.
Yeah, so he doesn't see it. And he probably won't see it. We have to keep our voices down just because, just in case. We want to make sure. We're pretty far away, so it's not a big issue. But this is the type of thing that if he were to realize that, it would completely change this game. All right, Sin Collector. But Sin Collector is quite nice here because it's lethal next turn. So even though he's been missing these, Huey's facing lethal damage for next turn. He needs to draw something, and it's a dissolve, and he's behind on board. And this is actually going to do it. Marlon's going to equalize here, and we're going to get a game 3.
Yeah. And that's it.
What
Huey
an
with
insane
a
game.
little bit of a misstep there using the dissolve on the pack rat. And Marlon, forgetting to use his Underworld Connections for a number of turns there down the line. But
I mean, he didn't forget, to be fair.
Well,
he thought it was still under the needle.
Yeah, but the needles were both underneath the sphere.
I know, but I'm saying, like, in his brain, he's like, this thing's turned off. I cannot use this anymore. It wasn't like he just didn't remember that it existed. All right, Huey has a quick word with the judge. He's coming right back to the table now, though.
Remember, this is a very high-pressure situation.
I mean, this is
Marlon's second Grand Prix ever.
Right.
I'm not trying to make excuses, but
well, no, I mean, this
thousands of people watching.
Look, it's not even that, though. I mean, we saw Huey forget that Pithy Needle was on the board. It's not that big of a stretch to think that Marlon didn't notice that the other Pithy Needle went away.
That's a very good point. There we go. One of the greatest control players who's ever lived made exactly the same mistake in the exact same game.
Right. Now, we got a chance to see, though, that so on one hand, Huey says, minus my Jace, and Marlon's like, no, the Pithy Needle's here. But for us, it's a little different because Marlon forgot over multiple turns, so we're kind of like, is he going to remember now? No, so it kind of keeps drawing attention.
And the thing is
but
that
it's the same mistake.
It's not like he's forgetting each time. It's just that it is not even an option for him on any of those turns.
I mean, we saw that he was very deliberately tapping that swamp to activate his Mutavault because he's just in his head. It's like, this thing's gone.
Yeah, and he wants to leave it over to the side because he doesn't want to accidentally draw an extra card with it and lose the game as a result.
That's right. Unfortunately for Huey, he had to sit there, and I know he was aware of what was going on there, but he couldn't quite find the answer. Again, we talked about it before, right? The Blood Baron of Vizkopa, Huey can kill it, but not that many ways. Like, he needs a Supreme Verdict in, and so he can't use his Supreme Verdicts lightly. He's got to make sure that he has an answer to that because
the problem is that it's hard to hold cards in your hand against Marlon.
Very hard.
Like Marlon is attacking your hand very aggressively.
Yes.
Like he has 3 Duresses, 3 Sin Collectors, and 4 Thoughtseizes.
Right.
Like, holding on to cards to deal with specific threats is a luxury that you don't have in this matchup. Yep. So, I mean,
that's a great point, Jake. And it also plays into the way that Marlon played that game, which is he played out a whole bunch of stuff that Huey needed to deal with, and then at the end of it, when the dust settled, he's like, Blood Baron.
Yeah.
It was 2 of them, but he's
I already made you discard a Supreme Verdict. You've already cast 2 Supreme Verdicts.
Right. So good luck finding the last one, buddy, because this thing's going to hit you every single turn for the rest of the game. And no, your Elspeth tokens can't, like, really tough threat to deal with. I mean, there's some decks in this format that just simply cannot deal with that card. Huey's isn't one of them, but it is still a chore. So we're going to get a game 3 here from Dallas-Fort Worth.
You know, one of the big breakout decks from this weekend was the black-white aggro deck, and Blood Baron of Viscopa is about the best thing you could possibly do against the black-white aggro deck.
Yeah, maybe Marlon has some secret spies in Team Channel Fireball. Got a little intel, and maybe not. But
hey, you never know.
So we're on game 3 now, and this is the finals of Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Loon, and this is going to be sick. We both felt like post-board Marlon Gutierrez had a sizable advantage after bringing in a bunch of hand disruption, which is pretty darn nice against Huey Jensen and his limited win condition control deck.
And it's interesting because the games will go long enough here where, you know, both people are going to see a huge portion of their deck. That game, though, Huey did mulligan.
He did mulligan. He came out of it nicely.
He drew pretty well out of the mulligan.
He drew excellently.
Yeah, I mean, he kept the one lander, and he didn't miss a land until turn 6, I think.
He also drew that Syncopate, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, the clutch Syncopate off the top.
Yeah, because
that was super important.
He got to 2-mana counterspell Marlon's whole plan, which was Thoughtseize you, resolve Underworld connections, and then on top of it, Huey hit a land drop he needed after that, played Divination, and drew 2 lands. So it went well in the early stages for Huey there, but he just kind of ran out of gas. Too many threats and not quite the right answers. And of course, like we mentioned before, you know, Marlon's keeping him off balance with those hand disruption spells. All right, keep and a keep. So here we go. Game 3. This is standard. This is Hall of Famer William Huey Jensen on the left. It's Marlon Gutierrez in his 2nd Grand Prix ever. Finds himself in the finals facing down one of the most intimidating and best players ever to play. Huey Jensen, he's in the Hall of Fame. He hands you that pin and you're like, crap.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, here it is. Thoughtseize, Dissolve, Supreme Verdict, Elspeth, Divination, Pithy Needle, and 1 land in the form of a Mutavault. So what is Marlon going to take here? Supreme Verdict is obviously a card he's concerned about. Elspeth is one of the main win conditions.
I take Divination.
Divination is the only spell right now that's really pushing things forward for Jensen.
I mean, it's the only card he can cast with the lands that he has.
Dissolve does not get cast off the lands that he has right now.
I just think it's... And I mean, you have another Thoughtseize for the next turn anyway. I think Divination's a pretty easy
I love taking
Divination
here.
That's what I would take.
I would too. Plus, it's just good against Thoughtseize in the sense that, like, yeah, he takes it. I mean, it's just like he's just going to recoup the loss almost immediately anyway.
Yep.
All right. Land and go. Sphinx's Revelation, a completely dead draw at this stage of the game. No double blue, so Marlon can resolve whatever the heck he wants here. Pack Rat.
Yeah, Underworld Connections.
Underworld Connections.
Underworld Connections probably not what he wants to do because he knows that there's the Pithing Needle on the other end. So he wants to Thoughtseize before he goes ahead and plays that Underworld Connections.
Sin Collector.
Oof.
So that can take Supreme Verdict's Dissolve or Sphinx's Revelation here.
I think I just take the Dissolve.
Even though he can't cast it?
Yep.
Okay. Sphinx's
I just
Revelation.
think it's the most relevant.
Obviously the most powerful spell. Elspeth is up there too, but he can't take that. Supreme Verdict, depending on his hand, of course, might just be the best thing and the only thing he cares about here. Marlon Gutierrez.
I think Supreme Verdict and Dissolve are both fine takes here.
Take Supreme Verdict. That's out of here, and that's not coming back, by the way.
Yeah, it's exiled.
Yeah, which it certainly matters here. And no land drop for Huey. He does draw a pretty nice one, though.
Detention Sphere?
Detention Sphere, because it can take care of Pack Rats, it can take care of, whatever. But he just needs to hit lands and keep hitting them for the rest of the game, basically, to stay in this thing. Needs a blue mana source ASAP as well if he's going to have
hitting land drops
here.
is just about the most important thing in a control mirror.
Right.
And the fact that Huey's not doing that right now puts him in a pretty rough spot. And that has a lot to do with the fact that Marlon had all this disruption. I mean, he would have been able to divination and look for that land.
That's right.
And if Huey takes the top 2 cards of his deck and puts them in his hand, it's pretty likely that he'd have a land to play right now.
Right. Now this can get pretty interesting because Marlon's obviously been off to a quick start disrupting the hand and stuff, but he does need to find ways to pressure his opponent, right? I mean, he's got to be able to keep, like if you Thoughtseize and duress your opponent 4 or 5 times, but it also just rips your hand apart and you don't have anything to back it up, you're not really that far ahead. I mean, that actually favors Huey because he's got more card draw spells than you do. So, you know, this is one of those interesting spots where the onus really is on Marlon here at some point to, you know, this Sin Collector is not going to get it done by itself. Looks like there's a little bit of confusion over there about something right now. I'm not sure what it is, though. Maybe if we're in attacks, what main phase, what's going on here? But it does look like Sin Collector got in there for 2, and now a Lifebane zombie. But, okay, they just had a life total discrepancy. So, obviously, gets a chance to take a look at his hand again. It's not going to find anything, but now he does have that pressure. What we were just talking about a second ago, Jake, now he's got 5 power on the battlefield, and he can just start jamming.
Yeah, I mean, 5, like, needing 3 more turns to end the game, essentially, or 4 more turns as opposed to... Oh, no,
this is an untapped land here for Marlon. Is it another hand? It is. It's a Thoughtseize. So he has just destroyed Huey's hand and put together a nice little attacking force. He's made Elspeth blank. He's made... Ooh, there's a divination, though.
It's a good one.
Draw 2. Land. Land. Okay, so can Huey scrape his way back into this thing? He's going to be taking 5 here.
It's going to be hard.
Take 5. Marlon Gutierrez is facing down Huey in the finals here and trying to scrape by for the win. Right now, he's in the driver's seat. Ooh, he drew another Thoughtseize? Jeez. Thoughtseize you. Dissolve, Sphinx's Revelation, Elspeth, Pithy Needle, and a land. Now, he knew most of these. He knew about the Dissolve, the Sphinx's Revelation, and the Elspeth and the Pithy Needle. He didn't know about the Plains. So the Pithy Needle doesn't matter. The Dissolve doesn't really matter. Elspeth could definitely matter.
Definitely.
And Sphinx's Revelation could definitely matter. So he's going to have to decide between those 2. I mean, it feels like Elspeth is the pull here.
Yeah, I think I just take Elspeth. It's Revelation, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get to Revelation for 1 or 2. I know. Yeah, the tokens can't block the zombie, but... Wow, he took the Pithy Needle, so he must have an Underworld Connections in his hand or something. All right, there's an Underworld Connections. Okay. Another land off the top for Huey. So he has resolved this whole land debacle, and he does have a Mutavault.
Yeah,
which can block which can trade for the 2/1 there.
Yeah, it cannot interact with that 3/1 though.
Cannot. Not an artifact creature. It is all creature types, but doesn't mean that it's an artifact. So here we go. Marlon's going to start drawing extra cards, hitting more land drops, attacking, and it looks like Huey's going to take it.
He's got to.
So he's going to have to
fall to 8 here.
He's going to have to fire off this Revelation if Marlon doesn't do anything devastating on his turn. Just desperation to try to find it. Yeah, here it is. Sphinx's Revelation for 2. Not what he wants to be doing, but certainly better than the alternative. And he finds 2 Dissolve.
Yeah, not a very good card when you're behind.
No. He needs to find a Supreme Verdict to at least get this board state shored up before he can start moving forward. One of them's already in the graveyard. Wow, takes 2 here.
Yeah, and that's rough because, I mean, he needs to do it because he needs to get this Elspeth onto the table.
He does.
Now, in doing so, the Lightbane Zombie does become a 3-turn clock by itself.
Yep. Now, Marlon has got himself down to 11. So We need to keep an eye on Marlon's life total. It's unlikely that Huey's going to be able to like turn the tides and race him here, but it is a consideration.
Yeah, it's definitely a consideration because he does have Mutavault. He has Elixir of Immortality in his deck.
There you go.
You know,
All right.
it could come up.
It could come up. So Hero's Downfall takes down Elspeth, though. Marlon played that nicely. He knew that was coming. He waited for it. Now Marlon falls down to 10. That's a 2-turn clock given what Huey has.
It looks like Marlon still has Devour Flesh in his deck, so that's interesting.
Huh. That looks pretty miserable here, really on all fronts. Even on his own creatures, he's not really getting much out of it. So that's a pretty dead card here.
Yeah.
Wow, Huey behind but not out yet. He needs to find a way to deal with that zombie. He can find, there's quite a few ways he can do it, but he's got to find it in the next 2 turns. Oh, no. That's a second zombie. So now
he absolutely needs Supreme Verdict.
Or
Detention
Sphere. That will take care of both of them. He finds another counter spell, and I think we're going to have a winner here in Marlon Gutierrez. Huey just can't find, he just found a ton of counter spells at the wrong time. When you're behind like this, they don't do anything. Marlon blocks, and Huey passes, and all Marlon has to do is turn these 2 zombies sideways, and that'll do it. He draws a Pithy Needle for the turn, but he says go to attacks, and that's it. Marlon Gutierrez is our Grand Prix Dallas champion. Huey Jensen is going to have to settle for a 2nd place finish here.
Great showing from him.
A fantastic showing.
Yeah.
Really great stuff on camera for all of us watching at home as well.